Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on service of process is not a game of tag. I get this issue a lot. It was on the back burner because I hadn't heard anyone bring it back to my attention for quite some time until about 4 days ago when it came back to my attention. And this is a pretty good example. So I have both a story and a little bit of, an explanation of what service of process is. In America, we have a right under the Constitution to due process, and a small piece of that gigantic right is that you have a right to know if somebody's trying to take your stuff. Whether the government is trying to put you in jail, they're trying to take your freedom. Whether, some credit or some collection agency is trying to take your property, like your money or whatever. Or whether it's your ex trying to take custody of your kids. You have a right to know that somebody's trying to do that, and you have a right to participate in the process to either prevent it from happening or control the outcome in some way. That's what service of process is. It's just your right to know, but so many people take it as a right to play hide and seek. It's like, yeah, I didn't answer the door. I knew somebody was trying to serve me. Well, if you know somebody's trying to serve you and you hide for long enough, they're going to serve you by publication. And then they're just like, what's that? And they can put you in the newspaper, serve you that way. That's not fair. Don't they have to give me the papers? Nope, they don't. Another one that's common in Nevada is you can serve anybody that lives in your place of residence over the age of 18. That's a big one. In fact, the one that came to my attention recently, she was served with a restraining order or a petition for a restraining order. And she said she was in another state, I think New York, somewhere on the East Coast. And I said, well, how did the sheriff in Washoe County serve you? Well, he didn't serve me. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Well, if he didn't serve you, the case wouldn't have gone forward. Oh, no, that's not what happened. The judge acknowledged that I wasn't served and still granted the TPO. And I'm like, that's not right. And then it dawned on me. I said, wait a minute. You said you're married, right? Did the sheriff serve your husband? Yeah. Where's your husband live? In Nevada, but I don't live there. Okay, so you're going to tell the judge that you don't live with your own husband and you're just hanging out in New York, or you're living in New York temporarily, but now you're coming back. It's going to look like a game. It's going to look like you're paying tag. The judge isn't going to have anything of it. Under NRCP 4, your husband was served. You live with your husband, and if not, prove it. Come back to court and show that you don't. And if not, here's an order that's now standing and enforceable. It's exactly what happened. Her husband was served the papers by the sheriff. The sheriff said, you know what, judge, proof of service. This is the lady's husband. They got to live together. They're married. And I know I'm kind of being a little flippant here, but it's just, you just get the vibe. I get the vibe over and over again that it's people who just wanted to play games with the process. Play a game of tag, hide and go seek, try and find me. Haha, I'm over here now. Eventually, oftentimes it comes back to bite you. People will say they weren't served, but the papers were put on their windshield when they just got in their car. They were stuffed in the crack of the door just as it was slammed in the process server's face. The process server said, hey, are you such and such? And they turned around and booked it, got in their car, ran off. They were down in in the lobby, and they refused to come out and went back up to their office and stayed in their cubicle and said, I'm not coming down to that process server. Play these games, you're playing with fire. It is so risky to do that. A proof of service could get filed in your case, a judgment could be entered against you, and now you're on the back foot. And now you have to try and figure out how to fix this problem. And you can yell and scream at the top of your lungs that you weren't served, but the judgment is on file. The ink has dried. Things are going to happen to you. If it's a collection agency, your accounts are going to get levied. Your wages are going to get garnished. If it's child custody, you don't have custody of your kids now. If it's just, don't mess around with this. Don't treat it like a game. Understand that it's just your right to know you've been sued. If you're playing technicalities and this and that, even if you somehow succeed and successfully manage to dodge a process server for weeks or months on end, even if you succeed, all that's going to happen is they're going to serve you by publication. And you are probably not going to have a clue that it's happening because it's going to be put in the newspaper, and a lot of people don't read the newspaper anymore. And even if you do have a clue and you show up and you lose your case anyway, now you're going to have to pay the $300 in addition to whatever other judgment that was entered against you, because that cost to publish you in the paper, that's taxable. So if you want to pay extra money to play a game of hide and go seek, by all means do it. But more often than not, it doesn't work. I haven't had somebody come to me and say, hey, Alex, I won my case by hiding. It worked. I've never had someone come and tell me that. Most of the time, people eventually get caught, they get served, they go to court. And some of the times, not most of the time, but sometimes, you have these disputes where somebody says they weren't served, the other person says they were, but guess what? The person who's in court talking to the judge, telling a person that you've been served, is your opponent, and they're in court, and the person saying otherwise is you, and you're in your house, or you're hiding somewhere. You're not in court. You're not communicating with the robe. The people who have the power are making decisions while you scream to everyone in the world that you haven't been served yet, even though you know you've been sued, even though you know a court case is open. So, I mean, I just wanted to do this video because I'm getting kind of sick and tired of it. And part of it is personal because my ex was incredibly hard to serve. Every single time. It took me forever to serve her. She thought it was a game of hide and go seek. She thought it was a game of tag. And she played it every single time I opened a court case. So I really don't have a lot of sympathy for people who hide and then end up with a judgment against them. Again, I'm not trying to make this video personal, but I'm just trying to explain that aside from everything that I've said with regards to the court's perspective and the law's perspective, my own personal perspective also doesn't look very kindly on that. I think it's a waste of everyone's time, a waste of money. And there was one time when I had to publish my ex because I couldn't find her. I had to put her in the newspaper. And guess what? That counted as service. I won the case. Case closed. That's it. That's the end of it. So she hid, but it didn't do her any good in the end. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video.